All right, Yate, everybody. Good evening. This is Indigenous Ways Wisdom Circle, and we just like to always start with taking this time to acknowledge the traditional owners and ancestors of the tribal lands of Oga Poge Owingeh, also known as Santa Fe. We reside, and thank you all for blessing us. This evening, we are very, very excited to have Cynthia Bond. She is a New York Times best-selling author, and her novel Ruby was chosen by an Oprah Winfrey Club selection. Ruby was also a Barnes& Noble Discover Great New Writer selection and an Indie Next Pick. A Penn Rosenthal Fellow, Bond attended Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism, then moved to New York and attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Everyone, please welcome Cynthia Bond. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, Cynthia.
Thank you so
Woohoo!
much for having me. It's really an honor.
Awesome. Well, to get our show started, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and some of your background? We'd love to hear about your um, upbringing and some of that stuff.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was born into a college family. I was born very close to a college campus in Prairie View, Texas, at Prairie View A&M University. My father taught there. My mother was a student. And we grew up listening to music of all kinds, and my father walking around quoting Shakespeare and Shylock from The Merchant of Venice. And it was a very cultural, just cornucopia, really. There was so much music. My father was in a band. There were lots of parties. We grew up with books just crammed in the shelves. And from a very early age, I would pull those books down and start reading books I had no business reading. I read lots of things I shouldn't have read at a very young age. I remember reading The Valley of the Dolls because it had to do with dolls.
Hmm.
So I thought it would be really fun to read. And I think I must have been in the maybe fourth grade, possibly fourth grade. Um, my mother went on to become a community college president, and she went on and got her PhD, and we were with her on her journey with education. And it was just a really interesting childhood. One of the things that was so strong is that, I was a kid in the late 60s, early 70s during the civil rights movement. And my mother was very active, and we were in meetings and at protests, and we heard about justice and the rights of all people from a very, very young age. My family hid a group of protesters when the police were out looking to catch them. They were hiding in our house. There was tear gas. We barely escaped tear gas at one of the protests. But the main feeling was that justice was the most important thing, and that all people deserved to breathe, to live, to stand tall in this world. And my mother was really instrumental in that. And just the stories we grew up with, hearing stories of her life, which have infused themselves into all of those stories became a part of the stories that I wrote. And what I'm so excited about now is that my mom has a blog, drzulemaharris.com, and she's writing her own stories now, which is really exciting. It's a wonderful thing to see. Yeah, yeah, it's really great. So that's just a little bit of my growing up. There's lots more, but that's just a little bit of it.
Wow, that is all I can feel is all the blessings that you were showered with by having all that inspiration, creativity, academia, and of course, some discipline around it because we can't think ourselves into a best selling book. We have to uh, write, learn, make mistakes, get up, fall down, get back up. So you write about difficult subject matter. What inspires you to keep writing?
Well, um, you know, there are a lot of things that I have experienced. There are things that I've seen. I've worked with at-risk youth I worked with that population for almost 25 years. Um, I've seen so much pain in this world. I've seen so much injustice. And the thing that often keeps me going is there is a desperate need that I have to write, to tell my story, there's this amazing author, and I do not remember her name in this moment, but she writes about how important it is to put our stories outside of our bodies, how our bodies should not be a coffin for our pain.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's really, I'm going to try to get the name for you of
Okay.
this wonderful author. But I really think that it is incumbent upon me, just as someone who has survived some difficult experiences, as someone who's witnessed a lot of really incredibly difficult things, and I've borne witness to a lot of young people telling me their stories. I feel that it's incumbent upon me to get this outside of my body, to put this on the page, whatever form that of art that we have, any pain that we have inside of us, it's important to put that on the page, to write that in music, to create art, because our pain and those cracks, those little fissures in our spirit and our soul, that's where our stories live. Our stories live in those little cracks and those little fissures. And um, it's important, it's vital that we tell those stories and that we speak truth. And so I keep writing because I have to, or I'm going to fall down. It's sometimes it's a little bit of a war. You got to get up every day and you got to write no matter what. And I have to, or I'm not going to make it. And I also write for all of the women who can't and haven't been able to tell their stories, for all of the women who have been silenced through their own experiences and what life has dealt them. I write for them as well.
That is very bold and super courageous. Those two words almost go together. And can you? I like to write too, and but I notice that when I try to go this road alone, I tend to, put off, procrastinate, blow it off. So can you
Right.
tell me more about writing groups and
Yeah.
particularly the Blackbird Writing Collective?
Yes. Okay. So writing is a lonely, lonely business. It is really hard. I know it's not hard for everybody, and if it's not hard for you, I say bless you. But for me, it is a very difficult task, and it really is. You're writing sometimes with your own blood. I mean, that's what it is. And so um, I started back in 2011, and I gathered a group of women together, and we wrote together. We turned in work. We shared each other's work. We supported one another, and that's how I finished my first book. That group had a sort of a renewal or resurgence during the George Floyd protests, and when everyone was standing up and fighting for the rights of Black men and women in America. And so I gathered a group of Black women together, and we write every day during the week. We get together like it's an office, and we get together on Zoom. We check in. We support one another. If one of us is having an issue or a problem, we stop and we talk about that. We really, we are there for one another in a really fundamental way. Some of the women in the group, I'm going to just mention, Toni Ann Johnson is just a brilliant writer. She's a member of the group. Nanama Dankwa is a member of the group. Chaiko Amawale, Jan Ford, Tanya Pinkins. There are about 12 of us, and some are new writers. Some have won awards, made films, created, these amazing masterpieces. And some folks are writing their very first book. And it's a wonderful way to support one another. And I needed to see my face. And every single Monday through Friday, I click on Zoom and I see myself. I reflected in these Black women, and it renews me. It restores me, and I'm able to write. I'm able to write because of these women.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I was coming from the valley, as we call it, in the Nambe area, Santa Clara area today, driving, and I was thinking about what would be a good title for a book. And what came to my mind was Wealth and Poverty, A Half Breed's Road to Redemption.
Mm.
And that just came to me, and I was just like, wow, maybe one day, someday, who knows? But just hearing your stories, I want to thank you for doing the walk that so many of us want, and so many of us have so many other things in front of all this that it gets put on the back burner. We go, okay, well, later, later,
I
later,
want to
later.
tell you that honestly, I have a little kitchen timer. It's got a little red, when you push it to 5, you see red in 5. It's a kitchen timer. And there are some days when it's really hard to write, and I'll set that kitchen timer for 5, and I'll let that 5 run out. And almost always at the end of that 5, I'm ready to push it to 5 again. I really, really encourage you to give yourself 5 minutes, just 5 minutes a day, and set a kitchen timer, and give yourself that, because you'll be amazed. There's a part of you that's waiting, that's just waiting. I remember once I wrote a poem called My Angry Poet, and I was asleep in my lover's bed, and my angry poet was tearing up the kitchen in their house, tearing it up because they were so angry. The poet in me was so angry that I wasn't writing. And so there's a part inside of
Wow.
you that is just like tiptoeing, teetering on the brink, waiting for you to open the door. So if you only give yourself 5 minutes, just 5 minutes a day, you'll see that part of you will be like, oh my gosh, thank you.
Yes. Yes. It's like starving,
Yes,
craving, hurting, wanting the creative expression to come out. And especially in these times right now, our lives just kind of like shifted. I mean, the Spanish flu of 1918
yes,
took
1918. Mhm.
14% of the American population. And so far, COVID has taken 2%. And during this time, how do you find hope?
First of all, the in my second book, there is a little bit of the Spanish flu is mentioned, and a part of one of the character stories is impacted by it, and everyone was wearing masks. They had just in the same way that we are. Um, I I think that I stumble upon it. Um, I you know, when you go outside and you're searching for a rainbow, it's really hard to find a rainbow. But but you'll just walk along one day and you see one just presented beautifully. And that's what hope is. Sometimes I really truly feel that I stumble upon hope, and I walk, um, and sometimes you can't see a way. You don't see that hope, but you just keep going.
Mm,
But and that's the trick, is to keep going. But I think ultimately too that I do believe that I feel naive sometimes in saying it, but I do believe in the arc of justice. I do believe
yeah,
that it will turn um, towards what is right,
thank you.
towards righteousness. I do believe that. And sometimes that's a little secret I keep inside of me. I don't talk about it a lot because we live in a very cynical world. And sometimes the word hope is looked down upon as if you are um, not being realistic. But I do believe that I do believe in that arc of justice. I do believe that it will turn um, towards the path that be will feel like home.
Right. Well, I know we've got a lot of musicians on tonight, and thank you again, everyone, for being with us this evening. And I know as musicians, it's pretty lonely in COVID when we can't get together with our musos and collaborate. And with the timing of Wi-Fi and stuff like that, it's hard to say, "Hey, Sage Bond, come in and vocalize on this tune," or Narissa, come on in and throw me some a jazz lead on this folk song. And hey, Gwen, put some drums in. We'll all be coming in at different times. So it's been really challenging for um, collaborators in the artistic
Right.
movements to not feel just kind of left out and alone. So, with the writing process, can you talk about what that looks like for you? Say, for example, one of the mornings you wake up and you don't want to do it. You're like, oh my God, I
Well,
got a
that's
deadline. What's that process look like in
well, I
writing?
do have a deadline that I have missed repeatedly. So there's that. I've missed my deadline for my book more than once, but they are very patient with me right now. But that's why at 11 a.m. every day, I know I'm going to get on Zoom and I know I'm going to write with some other women. And that sometimes I write before that and sometimes I write after that. But I almost always plan a date with someone. If it's not a date with the wonderful women I'm writing with, then I plan an evening date with another writer and we get together, we talk, and then we write. So I still, even though it's an individual process, and it is a lonely process, I am able to work because of the other women I'm working with.
Right, right. Wow, that's inspiring, because for some people, when they get in front of that computer and there's all these feeds that come in and the text is going off and this, that, and the other, and all these intrusions are coming into the creative process, like to turn off notifications and stay in that rhythm. When you sit down to do that, I'm sure you have your way to not get distracted. Do you have a beginning, middle, and end when you start anything like a poem or an
I
essay?
do read, I do like to read poetry. I love Pablo Neruda. I love his poetry. Sometimes I listen to music. My favorite song is As by Stevie Wonder. And I love to listen to that. Sometimes I put together a little playlist
Mm-hmm.
of my for my characters, and I listen to that. Um, there are a lot of tricks. I have a lot of. I'm a teacher as well, and so I
Oh,
have a lot of um, little tricks that I use, a lot of exercises that I use when I'm feeling stuck. And so I've got those up my sleeve, which I'm grateful for, and that I've learned from really wonderful teachers. And so I do need that inspiration or one of those tricks sometimes to get me started. Um, and the biggest, there was an amazing uh, essay that was written. It was in the LA Weekly, and I believe the author's name was Michael Nyland, but I could have that wrong. But he wrote this amazing essay called The Talent of the Room. And what he said is that you can be a brilliant essayist, you can be a fiction writer and have the most beautiful descriptive words. You might be a master at dialogue. You can have all of these amazing gifts, but if you don't develop the talent of the room, then all of it is for naught. And the talent of the room is sitting in a chair and not getting up.
wow.
That's the talent of the room. The talent of the room is being able to stay in your chair when you want to get up, literally stay in your chair and write something that you think is bad. You could write it and say, okay, I'm going to write bad today. This is just going to be a day where I'm just going to write crap. And that's what you have to do. And then you go back over it the next day and you perfect it and you make it better. And you go back the next day and you
Oh,
refine and you hone that. And then you move forward. And it's not getting up from the chair. And if you have a kitchen timer and you're not getting up from the chair for 5 minutes, guess what? You're going to write. You're going to
right.
sit down and you're going to write. And nothing is going to, if that's your goal, to just put something on the page for 5 minutes and you're not going to get out of that chair, that's how you do it. and you do it, and you develop a muscle. At first it's hard, but once you've been doing it for a while, you can sit there for an hour, for 2 hours, for 3 hours, for 4 hours, sometimes for five, sometimes all day, sometimes you can sit there all day, especially if you're on deadline. But it's the talent of the room that we have to develop more than anything else.
That's interesting. As of late, as in the last few years, I've been listening to people in the creative realms and disciplines talk about allowing themselves to be vulnerable and calling that a certain type of empowerment, to allow that vulnerability. I mean, we can be vulnerable to ourselves, we can be vulnerable to our partners, our family members, and, cry our eyes out or whatever we need to do to express. But to be vulnerable on a page that's going to possibly be published, can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, you have to develop I have a couple of really great talents. One is that I'm really good at lying to myself. It comes in it's a very handy talent, especially when it comes to writing, because I just tell myself, and I believe myself because I'm very good at fibbing to myself. I tell myself that nobody is going to read this. That's what I say. I tell myself, you don't have to show this to anyone, but you
Right.
are going to write it. You don't have to show it. You don't have to, you don't have to show any single word to a living person, but you're going to put it on the page.
Nice.
And that's, and I don't know if you have that skill, if you're good at doing that, but if you aren't, develop it just a little bit, and learn that you can tell yourself that, I mean, that's one of the things that I really try to do a lot with my students who are having trouble just putting words on a page. It's like nobody has to read it,
Wow.
but it's between you, your soul, your spirit, and there's a breath of truth that happens between your heart and that page, and that's all you have to do. And that's it. And you might make a different decision
Oh, yeah.
tomorrow. You might decide to share that with your partner. You might decide to you know give that to someone you love. You might make that decision, but you might not.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone's taking all of this in and will be ready to turn on their computers very soon, and tonight or tomorrow morning or at some point, and just take some of this wonderful, amazing advice from you. So I'm really curious about, and I'm sure other people are too, about what was it like when you received the call from Oprah Winfrey?
Well, I have a little vision board that I created, and I have it on my home screen. I made it in Adobe Photoshop. And on that, at the very top, I know this may sound a little crazy, but I had a picture of Oprah, saying that I was going to be a book club selection. I
Oh,
had that, and I honestly looked at it every day. Um, that doesn't mean that when it happened, it wasn't a complete and utter shock. I was actually teaching at a, a low residency program, college program, and I'd been invited to speak and for the weekend. And I had just finished a class telling people how important it was for them to tell their stories, that they literally are walking around with a treasure trove inside of them. We all are treasures, and we have these stories that are rich and vibrant and important. And I just told an entire room that my phone had been turned off. I walked out, I turned my phone on, and right then
Wow.
I got that call. And she told me who she was, and I believed her. I didn't doubt for a second that it was her. And she told me she'd read my book. She told me that she loved my book. And then she told me that I was the book club selection for that year. And it was, I think I may have screamed. I don't remember exactly, but it was one of those moments that, of course, I'll always remember. Getting that call and getting that validation. And that's
Yes.
after working on my book altogether about 20 years. From the inception, I started writing it in a writing class. These characters just spilled out and they tumbled onto the page, and then they just grabbed me and carried me along. I didn't know it was a book at first, but they dragged me along and forced me to write about them. But and so it was an amazing validation um, to get that call. And she is a really amazing person. Her belief in literature and promoting writers who are completely unknown. My book had been published as a hardback, and it was, I think, number 300 on the, that was, there's number one, and I was 300,000.
Yeah.
That's where I was. And I got that call. And when they made the announcement, you have to keep quiet about it for a very long time. When they made the announcement, my book shot up to be, I was on the New York Times bestseller list,
Wow.
just on the basis of that announcement. And I stayed there for weeks. And it changed the trajectory of my career as a writer. I have
Yes.
2 more books, and I'm working on the second one very diligently right now. I have a third book as well, and so it changed my life, uh, and it changed the life of my characters in my book. My book, because your book is like your kid. I'm a mom, and your book is like your kid. You want everybody to be nice to her, but it doesn't always happen. But it was a wonderful experience.
That's wonderful. I was just curious to hear about that. So, the last question I have for you before we turn it over to our little commercial break is, what does thriving and purpose mean to you?
Thriving and purpose.
Yeah.
Hmm. I feel, I think the idea of thriving, the first image I get is of this rich field of, that's growing and being filled with water and nutrients and the sun. But I don't know if I have that. I feel like what thrives in me is inside of a little box in my spirit. It's but it's there, and it seeks light, and I water it, and I nurture it, but it takes work. It is like a little flame, really, that I have to feed. But it's not a bonfire, but it sustains me and it keeps me going. And a purpose, my goodness, um, I think that we all, to not sound like a cliche, but we do all have a purpose. And what I've learned, something my mother knew long before I knew, but my purpose is to tell stories. That's why I'm here. I'm here to be a mom and to love my daughter and to nurture her. And I'm here to tell stories. And it, it so that's my purpose. And I think our job on the planet really is to discover and find what that is in for each of us, and then to hold on tight.
Mm.
We have to hold on tight because the world will shake us up and spin us around, and we've got to have something that we're holding tight to, and that is purpose, and that is what we have to not let go of.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Cynthia, for being with us tonight. And we are so grateful to know you and your family. And we want to continue to know you and your family and continue to follow you, read your work, and support you in any way we can. So thank you. And I am going to pass it on to our beautiful Elena.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you so much for that, Cynthia. Thank you for blessing us all with your incredible wisdom and all of that great stuff that you've been sharing with us. Just before we bring all our audiences in Zoom, we just want to let you know what's going on in the tail end of next week. Next month rather. We are really thrilled to have Linda Lomohaftewa, who is from Hopi and Choctaw Nations. She will be joining us next March. We're really jazzed as she has maintained her thriving career, not only as a working artist, but also an educator throughout her life. Linda's work has been shown in museums and galleries throughout the States, also through Turtle Island and internationally. She's been featured in numerous publications and articles about contemporary Native art, including Native American women in art. So be sure to join us next month, same channel, same time, in supporting Linda Lomohaftewa, who will be here. So we're really jazzed about that. We have been doing this Wisdom Circle and concert series since April 1st, 2020, and we've been very blessed to support over 145 presenters who are stationed in our video library. So if you want to find them and get more wisdom or share the beautiful Cynthia Bond's message that she had, you can go to our website, IndigenousWays.org. Cynthia's video will be available in the next couple of days, so please feel free to share that with all your peeps. Below me, you'll see all our social media, also in the chat. We'd love you to support us, either being a friend or subscribing to those social networks. This is also being beamed out live, so hey to everyone in our social media circles. We've been very honored since the 1st of April 2020 also to have, not only are these all free, but have ASL interpreters, so access is available for all. We want to thank our sponsors that are including in this round the National Endowments of Humanities, the New Mexico Humanities Council, WestAF, New Mexico Arts, National Endowments of the Arts, and the Northern Rio Grande National and Heritage Area. Also, thank you to our board and also our thousands of individual donors that have made this possible. If you are able to donate, you can. Over to the slide here, we have PayPal, Venmo, or on our website, IndigenousWays.org, you'll see the donate button. If you're not into the electronics at all, we totally get that. There's the snail mail, which is P.O. Box 4073, Santa Fe, New Mexico 87502, where we are. And so this is that wonderful time for all of those who are in our social media or our Zoom. If you want to come in, you can turn your turn your cameras on. That'll bring you into here. So it's that time of not being shy, but if you might have a question, if you are feeling shy, you might want to put that in the chat box while people are figuring out where their cameras are to start coming in. But here are some comments while that is happening.
Amy Lafferty. Hello, Amy, our sister here in Santa Fe. Amy says to you, treasure troves. That's what we are. Storytelling. Everyone has a story. I love the vision board. Oprah telephone call about the book club choice. Thanks for sharing the struggles. Pardon me, I got a dry throat. And we've got Elena, you just moved it?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Boom.
We've got Cynthia from Wanda Bell. Thank you for sharing. Destiny, our niece, says, love you all. Tony Ann Johnson says, thank you, Cynthia. And Kitty.
Brilliant writer, by the way. I just need to say again what a brilliant writer Tony Ann Johnson is. She just won the Flannery O'Connor Award.
Yay.
She's quite amazing.
That is so cool. Well, congratulations. We're very, very happy for you. And our board member, Kitty, says, thank you for sharing your process with so much vulnerability and talking about what inspires you. It has been wonderful to hear you speak. Rachel Pablo, our board member, says, water. And you are the best, Tony Ann Johnson says. And I'd like to welcome our audience to who would like to go first.
Oh yeah, we've got the beautiful Narissa who is waving.
Hi, I just want to say hello. I'm on my brother's phone. We had some technical difficulties, and I just wanted to tell Cynthia that my sister, that it was a fantastic presentation. I have to turn around. All of us are here, and everybody says hi. And so Cynthia, was a great presentation. Hey, Gwen. Hey, Todd.
And my sister is
and cousins.
I have to say that my sister is a masterful musician.
Yeah.
The stories that we heard from our mother and our father, but mostly our mother, Narissa has interpreted those and told those stories through music. And I really cannot say enough how much your music inspires me, and how everybody needs to check out narissabond.com. And if you don't know Narissa's music, you are missing out. So,
well, we are looking forward to having Narissa back here in Santa Fe now that she's closer to us for sure. So we will be calling you soon, Narissa. Who would like to go next before I start picking people?
So while our shy crowd are figuring out where their microphones are to unmute and ask questions, Narissa, it's so beautiful to see you. Wanda, you're there, would you? And you look nice and close. So is there any words or questions or anything like that you'd like to say or share with the beautiful Cynthia?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I just enjoyed the presentation. It was just fantastic. It was really good. I have been fortunate to be able to see Cynthia present. And it was just really, no one could see me, but we're all sitting in a room, my mom, my brother, and I had my mask on, but I was just kind of smiling behind my mask. At the beautiful presentation. It was just really good, Cynthia. Very good presentation. And yeah, it's fantastic. I can't wait until the book is finished, and I can't wait until I sit down and I can read it. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also enjoying your process too. watching you. It's fascinating. I'm in awe. So
Thank you.
yeah,
There is something that happens when the pieces start to come together. That's why I always tell writers not to give up, because really sometimes it's like you're wandering around in the dark. You have all these disparate segments and things, and you're like, how does this fit? And then it can be through a dream or meditation, or one day it just all connects and all the pieces start clicking together. And you're like, of course that's there, because that needs to be, so it's really, there are these miraculous moments that happen as a writer when quite literally all of the puzzle pieces start. That little sound when a piece sort of snaps into place, that satisfaction that you feel, that happens sometimes. And I've been experiencing that lately, which has been really, that's the gift, that's the mana, that's when you know you're on the right path.
Very cool. Thank you for that. And let's go to our sister Gwen. Hey, Gwen, how's it going in Georgia there, sister?
I knew when you asked me to unmute, you were going to call on me next. Hey, Cynthia.
Hi Gwen.
You remember me, right?
Of course. Of course.
This is something I don't think I've ever heard you talk much about, and I hope I'm not putting you too much on the spot, but there's a little movie called Death by Temptation.
Oh my gosh.
I hope it was a good experience. What was it like doing that movie?
So first of all, we all have our little secrets, and that's mine. Thank you. Let's move on. No,
Okay.
You're off your Christmas list, Gwen, FYI.
I was an actress for a time of my life, and I did a horror movie where I was a very bad person, but it really is a part of my past that is not active in my life right now. So it was an experience, and now it's over. So
I enjoyed the movie.
that's good.
Well, I want to see it.
Now I'm curious to see it.
Yeah, me too.
Oh my gosh, it's got a lot of issues that. Anyway, I don't want to say anything bad about it. I was very young, and it was a wonderful experience at the time. So
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, Gwen. Look, we're going to go to Phoenix, and after Phoenix, we're going to go to Tony. Thanks, Phoenix. Good to see you. And thanks, Gwen, for the question.
Thank you, Cynthia Bond, for your wisdom. I love what you said. I'll carry it with me. The discovering, or if you don't find the talent of the room. Where did that come from? Obviously, you're a writer. So, I mean, I love that, sitting in the chair. Why have I heard that so many times and never done it? So I think we'll see. And then I loved also what you said about when you do that and you're sitting, and all of a sudden you said, eventually you can sit, and then eventually you sit for hours, and then a breath of truth comes, that happens between your heart and the page. That was wonderful. And I don't know, I remember another writer that I loved, and why I can't remember her name at this moment, always said the story has to inhabit you. And you said that your characters dragged you into writing. So I love that you're putting that out for all of us to take in and use, I hope. And so thank you for sharing with us.
So what is it that is stopping you? What do you feel is stopping you when you're getting ready to write?
I don't think I never felt that I have this story, right? That's been around for a long time, but it hasn't really happened where I feel that it's come and said, write me now. And
Okay. So what I want to say is that the story sometimes, you know, it's like a dance, and sometimes the story takes the lead and sometimes you take the lead. And sometimes in the beginning, you have to take the lead. But trust that eventually the story will be a good dance partner. But if you wait for the dance partner to start, then it's sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes you have to take the lead and not wait for that moment of inspiration or wait for that moment. It's a process, but I really, really encourage you to sit down and take the lead and put some words on a page. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be change the world, but they are coming from you, so that makes them sacred. And I really encourage you to do that.
thank you.
Beautiful words.
I'm going to try finding the talent of the room. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All
Thanks,
right.
Phoenix.
Let's go on to Tony. Hey, Tony, thanks for joining us.
Hi, it's Tony Ann, actually.
Tony
Sorry.
Ann, congratulations.
I am so happy to be here to see Cynthia speak and to learn from her. I am constantly learning from her, and I think everybody should know that she is an outstanding literary citizen. And she's been this way since I've known her, and I met Cynthia like back in the 80s. And even back in the 80s, Cynthia was the most supportive, gracious colleague you could ask for. And she, in fact, came to a reading that I have that was really awkward and kind of terrible because my family was there and it was about them. And I was so young that I used their actual name and they were furious. And somebody was criticizing the play and Cynthia sat up and spoke and she was just so supportive and she said something really kind. And she's just always been a writer's cheerleader. She's an amazing teacher, colleague, friend, writer. I think we're very lucky to have Cynthia in our lives, and I'm just so grateful to her.
Yes.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
feel
I'd
the
like
same
to
way
go
about
on
you.
to our elder, beautiful Pueblo Nambe elder Gilbert.
Behum, which means good evening. Thank you for calling on me. I'm trying to absorb everything you said, that Cynthia. One of the things you said was you got to get your thoughts, your feelings. Otherwise, your body could become a coffee for some of the things that are out there. I come from a community. I'm a spiritual leader. I head the Summer Society. Our history is oral. It's from one generation to the next. Our songs, our words of advice, our dances are very sacred, of course, and they're not written down anywhere. Over the generations, that the message of our elders has been passed on. Our prayers, our shrines are in different places in our community. And we don't write about them, but rather we pass them on to our youth. Hopefully they'll get the fullness of it. I don't pretend, nor do I claim that I know everything. If you look at the history of the Nambe Pueblo and the other Pueblo communities, they date back to 1300 AD. And excuse me, I know for sure that a lot of the words that were passed on many years ago probably have differed a little bit. And so for me, there is so much to learn yet so much has been forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you continue passing the tradition on in a most accurate way that you can? If I were to write about what I know, I'm sure I'd be chastised by my own community and other Tewa speaking communities in the northern area, plus other Kara speaking pueblos that do not allow anything to be written, but yet we hold it in our hearts and minds. And I guess the benefit of that is that we pass it on to our young. But language is so critical that the Tewa language has to be preserved. And how do you pass on that tradition and culture where the language is slowly declining? Scary, scary. The other thing I like to comment on is it's our world today. We're in a dire straits. Our world is not in balance. The COVID virus has really done a number, and it's done a number to us and other pueblos in many ways. Our feast days, our sacred ceremonies that fall on the solar calendar, we've not had our dances or ceremonies because of this virus for the past half years probably. And so what it does is it leaves a gap for us and how we pass that tradition on to the young people. What I have seen though is there's a positive thing that's come out of this virus that I have observed. And that is like Tosh and Elena taking many trips to the Navajo land, take food and water. Amazing. That's not the humanity out in all of us, like we can't believe. Our dances, like I said, have been closed, but yet we continue with going to the Pueblo and lecturing to people who want to hear us on a smaller scale. Haven't gone online yet, Tosh, but we're thinking about it.
Right.
But in
All
any
right,
event,
Gill.
it's, the world as a whole. If you look at how many food banks have been out there to support the human being who are in need, if you look at some of the cities that have had the highest pollution levels ever recorded, when the COVID virus hit, pollution levels in those places like Los Angeles, New York, and other places, their pollution levels went down. And it tells me Mother Earth is very happy. She is happy because her land, when the Creator created Earth and the solar systems and all that and us humans, our Creator's intention was to live in peace and harmony and to accept the diversity of the world. Yet, it seems to me that mankind, for whatever reason, has done a good job of saying, no, you don't belong here. Oh, no, you can't do that. It's just crazy. Our political arena it's unbelievable where we're at.
I agree.
And where are we going to go? I just feel that we can't give up on ourselves or on the world or our state, our family. We just can't do that.
Yeah.
We got to continue. And I appreciate what you said about we can't be a coffin for all what we have in our heart and mind and our souls. We can't.
And that was a quote from a really talented author. Her name is Iya Ehime Ora. And that was a quote from her. And it was one that was shared in our writing Zoom group. And that's where I heard that. But your oral traditions sound that is, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I felt that there's so much power in those traditions. And I want to ask you, you were saying that if you were to write it down, people would be angry at you. The question is, do you have a desire to write it down? If you don't have a desire, that's one path, and that's the journey that you are supposed to take. But my question is, do you have a desire to write it down?
I have a desire, yes, and I have done that. It's very private, of course.
That's
And
really
yeah, and it's in black and white, in my little safe, in my little world. But as a summer society head, I have a right and a left arm. There are individuals that sit on my right and left hand side. If something should happen to me, then that is the responsibility of the right hand. The left one will move to the right, and then we'll initiate somebody else. That's sort of how I operate. And when I write, it's for their eyes only, the two individuals I mentioned.
I have to
Awesome.
tell you,
Awesome.
I used to work with homeless youth for decades. And I remember there was a young woman, she was wanted to take her life, and her friend, her name, her street name, I can say it because was Puppy. And her friend wrote this poem on a blackboard, and it was Puppy Love. And it was this brilliant, brilliant poem. And I read it once, and then he took it and he erased it. No one ever carried it, but it's in my heart, and it's with me, and it will always, always, always be with me. And so there are some stories have different paths, they have different journeys, but that poem was supposed to exist for that moment written, and then it was supposed to be erased, and it will stay inside of me like a beautiful ghost. It will stay with me like a spirit, like a beautiful spirit.
This is so beautiful. Gosh, thank you all for this conversation tonight. Everybody, thank you, Elder Gill, and thank you everybody for joining us tonight. And let's give it up for Cynthia Bond. Let's all check her out, Cynthia, on her website, and let's support her writing, and let's pass on the word, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you
We love
for
you
having
all.
me. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a wonderful gift. So thank you.
We
If I
love
may,
you.
if I may,
Love your
Cynthia.
family. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Nice.
you. Thank you very much.